What's up, guys? Thanks for watching Aeolus Defense. Today, we have the Wild Things Gear shelter system. And so we wanted to do a product review for you of a pretty good piece of kit. And I think that this will serve multiple people in the outdoor community well. Whether you're military, law enforcement, a hunter, a backcountry hunter, a tree stand hunter, or a backpacker. So let's take a look at this kit right now and show you all of the options that it has. We'll show you a couple of ways to set it up. And let's start now with the shelter.
So this is the shelter itself, right? So this is your 1000D. It's 5 feet by 8 feet, 1000D Cordura. This one is a multicam. I believe they make another color, but this, this is kind of what you would want for the purposes of hunting and, the backcountry, just if you want to be a little bit more concealable. It's got a DWR coating on the inside, so that's this part in here. It also, it's got reinforced grommets, so that's nice because most of the time they'll just punch cheap ones through here. That's, that Wild Things doesn't do that, so high quality piece of gear there. They also have an interior pocket right here where you can stash stakes or your rope or whatever you need to do secure it. I personally like kind of tying it around after you get it set up or you got so much in there, but great option. Made in America, very compliant, so support the USA on this one. And this is one part of a two-piece system. It can be bought independently, I believe, so you can buy either one or the other depending on what your needs are. But this is the outer portion of this shelter itself.
This is the shelter liner is what they call it. It's almost identical to a Whoopee. It's, I think, 56 by 80 inches. It has ties so that you can tie it to the shelter or you can tie it to yourself. But it makes a great blanket in the field. I know it's not waterproof, but it is a little water resistant, especially if you wrap the shelter over the top of it. And so it gives you a lot of options for multiple things that you might do. So right now what we want to do is we want to show you a couple of options. How we're going to set this up right now. We're going to set it up a couple different ways: as a blind, as a hide, and as an actual shelter. All right, guys, this Wild Things Gear shelter, it makes an excellent, excellent hasty blind. So if you are going to a new area to hunt, or you're in the backcountry and you need to make it to where you're not silhouetting yourself and break yourself up well, just some 550 paracord around this tree, and I'm very well, my outline is broken up, and it's a very good hasty blind. One thing that's really important is I love that it's multicam, because most people just buy a green tarp. The thing is, with a green or a tan tarp, you can really see it, but multicam blends in really good with the environment, especially when you add just a little bit of foliage to it, that it makes it to where it breaks your outline up even better. So this is one of the things that I don't think a lot of people think of, but this Wild Things Gear shelter kit makes an awesome, awesome hasty blind.
So you can see where this also works really well if you need to make a concealed position to shoot from, especially if you have some inclement weather possibly coming in. I'm very comfortable in here, no bugs. If it was raining, wouldn't be getting wet, nice soft on the ground, so perfect for those times where you're just going to sit for a long time and you might have to take the shot of a lifetime.
Another use for this tarp that you probably didn't think of is we spend a lot of time hunting. Maybe you're in the military and you're on an operation and you need to stash your gear here because maybe there's an elk down there or your operation's down there. And so I want to mark it on my GPS, but I want it to be relatively waterproof. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my shelter and I'm going to lay the shelter down on the ground so that if the ground is wet or gets wet in a rainstorm, that my gear doesn't get wet on the bottom. And then stack our gear in here, grab these stakes, and then just come in and place it at an angle and go ahead and mash it into the ground. And then what you want to make sure that you do is you want to do a couple of these, because what you don't want to do is get yourself where the wind is going to blow this up. And so you want to add a couple of them in to make sure that it's really good and secure. And then what you want to do is you just want to take some debris and some rocks and put it on there so that no wind has the ability to get on top of it, right? The most important thing you want to do is either use a GPS, and if you don't have a GPS, then use some sort of a marker, right? If you're hunting, it's okay for you to put some orange markers up and lead you a trail back to here and just come take them off when you're done. But this is an excellent way to be able to hide your gear and make sure that it's out of the way. Nobody's just gonna come pick it up. You're not gonna lose it, and you're gonna keep it dry out of the elements.
And what's also nice about having a big shelter, some people might say, hey, well, I have a bag, cover, right? Well, it doesn't keep the underside of your bag dry. And if it's me and you together, well, maybe you don't have one, or maybe I have other stuff, or I want to pull something out of my little day pack. So, and I want to take that with me. Maybe it is raining, so I can take this and put a lot of other gear underneath here, as opposed to just having a pack cover. That kind of keeps it dry while you're walking with it, but not when you're stashed.
Shelters are becoming invaluable, aren't they?
Yeah.
All right, guys, one thing that this Wild Things gear, shelter, tarp, and shelter cover does for you is it gives you the ability to actually make a shelter. There's plenty of room. I'm 5'11". There's plenty of room for me and all of my gear inside the shelter. This is a complete waterproof tarp. Having the shelter liner makes it to where I can get nice and snug and stay warm down to about 35 degrees. And then, of course, if I had other clothing on, that would keep me very warm as well, in addition to the shelter liner. Now, one thing that I would suggest that you add to this is some sort of a stove, like a Jetboil or an MSR, because if you are in the backcountry and you get wet, there's a chance you could become hypothermic. You can get inside of this and it will hold your heat. Lower this down and block yourself in and turn that little stove on, and not have to worry about making a fire, and get yourself back warm and dried out to save your life. But for backcountry hunting, for military operations, for a time that you need a shelter, this is pretty amazing, and there's plenty of room for you and all of your gear. And actually, there's probably plenty of room for you and a buddy.
So the fifth way to use a Wild Things shelter is as a sunshade. We're out here in the high desert where the temperatures can reach over 110 degrees in the middle of the day, and getting out of the sun can be very important to your survival and just your overall comfort.
All right, guys, so as a recap, there are a couple of things that you need for a shelter system. Something to sleep on, something to sleep in, and something to sleep under. And then the ability to set your shelter up in one of the 5 ways that we just showed you. And so what we have for that we have to all together is this shelter kit, is we have these 6 MSR stakes. You can get them at REI. They're cheap. I don't even know how much they are. They're not very expensive, but they're like the 3-prong or 3-piece aluminum metal so that they don't bend. I would recommend making these loops just a little bit longer. I had one piece of 50-foot paracord that I don't cut. I burn the ends. I don't cut it, but I can use it as any like main beam line. And then I have 6 lines of pre-cut 6-foot paracord, which allows us to hang it from any side of the trees or stake it down to the ground just a little bit longer. Yep. And to show us in comparison of size.
So MRE, just standard MRE, and then we had wrapped up, this is the waterproof shelter. So you can see kind of how big these are together. And honestly, it's a little bit lighter than an MRE too. So that's just the outer part as we get to the rest of these pieces, obviously.
So the way that we store our tarp shelter kit for our packs is inside of the Wild Things shelter kit, there's a pocket that's made for your stakes and your 550 paracord. Make sure you don't have anything sharp on your stakes, that they're not sharpened to where they can punch a hole through them. And then what we want to do is our something to sleep on is this, I think it's like a $14 tarp. It's Mylar on the inside. It's a survival blanket, but it's, instead of just a regular cheap one, it's made to use over and over. Yeah. So we have this for something to sleep on. And what we want to do is we want to wrap the shelter liner inside of this so that it gives it that edge of being just a little bit more waterproof. One of the reasons that we're wrapping these separately right now is because we just showed you 5 different ways to use the shelter, and not all of those ways are you gonna have to have the whoopee. And so the whoopee is very specific to it's very cold, or I'm actually sleeping at night. And so I wanna keep them separate so that I can use the tarp as a blind or a shelter or something like that. So I keep them separate, but I also bind them together. So this Wild Things shelter kit and the shelter liner as a package together gives us something to sleep on, something to sleep in, and something to sleep under. I think it makes it very compact. It's very nice to be able to carry.
And what's nice is you can split this up. If I didn't have like this much room in one whole spot of my pack, I could put this maybe on the outside or in another pocket. So really helpful.
Yeah, so we highly recommend Wild Things Gear shelter system. And the reason why is because this system right here can absolutely keep you alive. And you never know what you're gonna run into. You can be hunting in the mountains, you can be in the military on an operation, and you have to get out of the weather. This is an absolute amazing, compact, lightweight kit to be able to do it.
So many options too. I mean, as we showed you those 5 different ways. So
yeah,
really,
you can
really
use this. It's a very versatile piece of kit.
Yep. It's gonna last a lifetime too. I mean, Barry compliant, made in America. Can't get tougher in this stuff.
Can't get tougher. All right, guys, so thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications. Guys, send me some comments. Talk to me in the bottom. That helps us out. The more you talk, the more that people can see us. Share this because we need the word out, and we appreciate you watching.